Okay, so with us doing these videos and kind of giving you guys a taste of what we've been doing, a little bit of a tutorial on what we've already been doing with these last two videos with the hive inspection, it kind of occurred to me that I really didn't go over anything in regards to what this hive is, kind of a little bit of background behind what kind of really motivated me to set up a beehive. And then really in a lot of the components and stuff that you might need, any of you that might be considering or thinking about doing it. A little background, I mean, I've always, if you look at my Facebook or Instagram, you see I'm very animal friendly, but I've wanted to set up beehives for about a decade now. First time I really encountered just a standard Langstroth beehive was about 10 years ago when I went out to California to stay with some family members. A friend had a beehive set up on the property, and I asked him a bunch of questions back then, and it really kind of piqued my interest. So from then until now, I've always wanted to do it, but with Whitney and I renting kind of prevented that really becoming like a possibility. And now that we have a home and property, albeit we're not living on 10 acres, it's a little bit more feasible and manageable. So first thing I can recommend to anybody that's looking for doing it would be looking online, finding local beekeeping associations in your area. I joined Tidewater Beekeepers here in Hampton Roads, but I also joined Norfolk Beekeepers, which meets not far from where our house is. So it's already been really helpful. I've gotten a lot of really good information. I've been able to find some mentors that have been really helpful, and it's nice to have somebody on speed dial if you need to call or text them if you have a question, especially when you're working on something. Especially when you don't want to walk away from the hive. First thing I'd say would definitely invest in some protective gear. They are pretty calm. They're working, as you can see. I'm not wearing any, and I'm standing here next to the hive. That really aren't bothered by me, but they can be. So it's definitely a possibility to get stung. Next thing, I looked on Man Lake. I'm not advertising for them, but that is where I bought my beginning beekeeping kit. So what it came with was, down here was a cedar bottom hive stand. I had a solid bottom board which runs right here along the bottom. It's a white slatted board. It's got raised edges off of both sides, and that's the bottom board that the hive actually sits on, these hive boxes. You'll have one hive box that this kit I bought came with. This is a Langstroth hive. It's been around since roughly the 1850s. Prior to really commercialization, beekeeping has been going on for a very long time with humans, but prior to really building a hive that makes it easy and manageable to extract honey, you had to destroy the hive, which was really detrimental to the bees. So since these have been created, commercial ones like this that you see very often make it a lot easier for managing a hive, as well as when you do extract honey or other things you can get from a hive, makes it easier without disrupting or damaging or killing the bees. This box is an 8-frame box. It usually comes with a standard 8 or 10 frame. I chose to go with an 8 frame because I'm a novice and kind of didn't want to overwhelm myself. And this box is called a deep. Now, a traditional honey box will run about half or more shallow of the size. Those can be called supers, where you have the bees store honey. This is a deep box, so it has a deeper well for inserting frames for them to draw out comb. These boxes will be for them to raise their brood, where they'll raise worker bees as well as drones, or a queen if they had to replace the queen. I just recently put the second box on. If you guys saw that, these videos I just posted recently, the bees were needing a little bit more space, and I wanted them to create more room and more comb for the queen to lay to kind of boost the population and have some more bees in here. If you looked at the last video too, what I took off at the top was an inner cover. It's an inner cover that goes right on top of the hive. They will seal that with their saliva, which is called propolis. It's like glue. What they're basically doing is sealing up their hive to make sure that it's somewhat airtight, weatherproof, and also kind of prevent from anything that's foreign to the hive or intruders. They want to make their hive a kind of a somewhat sealed environment. And then of course the top, I have a telescoping top cover that adds a little bit of an opening off of the side and just kind of helps out with things. So inside each frame, This is a nuke box. It's something I'm putting together in case I ever need to split the hive. You'll have just standard traditional frames. This is a deep frame, so it's deeper than more shallow frames that you'll find on different sized boxes. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that feel differently about different things, and I'm new, so I'm still learning. This is a plastic foundation that's been waxed. The foundation, you can either leave an empty frame in here and have the bees work to draw comb, which they will do. It requires some effort. Or there are some schools of thought on having foundation, this hexagonal foundation, to help encourage the bees, give them some geometric shape already, to have them start drawing out comb to make it just a little bit easier for them to work. It requires a lot of work, a lot of honey for these bees to draw out honeycomb. So just a little look at how that is. You know, this frame, there's a little channel in here. It'll just slide in, and it'll do the same for this box. This is just a smaller box. Some things I would recommend. These are a few things that came in this beginning beekeeping kit, but after I've already started and seen what other people were using, there's a few other things that I bought that I see that I needed. Okay, first you'll need your smoker. I bought some fuel through them. I know people will use natural fuel, other people have different fuel sources, but some smoker fuel just to create not hot smoke, but just smoke that can calm the bees down. This came with a bee brush. I have not used this yet, but typically it's used if you've got them on frames and somewhere on the hive, or instead of putting your hands on them, if you just gently brush them off. The protective suit, I'll get to that in a second. It also came with these long leather gloves. I've used them a little bit. They're good if you're trying to not get stung. What I did notice is I kind of have a little bit of less dexterity than I would have preferred. So I've kind of ditched these, and I'm going to kind of experiment around with some different gloves. I've seen stuff that other people have been using, but at the moment I'm just using these dishwashing gloves. They're still fairly thick, but thin enough that I can really feel what I'm doing in the hive. Probably have to ditch these for something else once it gets warmer and I'm out here messing with the hive in the middle of July and I'm sweating. But that's what I'm using right now. This looks like a little pry bar, but it's a hive tool. It's got a beveled edge so you can put it between the boxes and separate them as the bees have sealed them up with that propolis. And just another prying edge so you can move and manipulate some of these frames. I got a second hive tool. This one has like a little J hook on it, so it makes it easier when you're inspecting the frames. They can actually stick it right here underneath the frame and use that as kind of like a leverage point to dig and pick that up and take it out without really disturbing or killing any of the bees. Give you a little bit better of a lifting point. I'm keeping notes already. Everybody I've talked to already has said to keep notes on your hives. We only have one hive, but keeping notes on them seemed to be very crucial. And one of the last things I got is a frame holder. You can put your hands in here and grab one of the frames, but I've noticed already that not only that can be a little tricky, especially when it has some weight to it, but it can definitely disturb the bees and you don't want to squish any of them. So all that is just like a clamp. You can put it against the hive frame, squeeze it, and you can pick it up and inspect your frame really without having to manipulate them very much. And then it's easy to put the frame right back in. Another thing you would definitely want to have close by, our home is right, butts pretty much up to the river, so I'm not really concerned as much with them not being able to find water, but if you can have a close water source right up near the hive, definitely better. I've already seen plenty of them drinking out of it, and it's good to maybe throw a couple corks or something into there just so they have a couple landing pads just in case one falls in, and just so they won't drown. And the last thing, which was important, I've actually bought a few of these now in case anybody wants to come over and take part into it. Get a protective jacket. This one I just got in the mail today. It's a protective jacket with the veil, but it's vented. It's a little bulkier, but I can already tell it's going to make it much easier when we're out here working in the hive to have a vented one rather than just wearing just a normal standard coat, especially in June or July when it's incredibly hot. Trying to think. That's pretty much all I can think about right now at the time. I'm going to be opening them back up again on Monday. I added this second box, and I'm going to make sure that they're taking enough food, but also that they've started drawing comb out on this top box so that the queen can come up and start laying eggs. So as she lays eggs in this new one and really fills that one out, that's when I'll look at adding a box on top to try to start collecting some honey, at least for them to have to eat, so they can overwinter, and if we're lucky, maybe a little bit that we can take. So I appreciate any of you guys looking at these videos we're posting. I'm going to just say again, I'm a novice. I'm not an expert at it. I still have to ask, text, and call my mentor on several things when I'm kind of at a wall and trying to make sure I'm not doing the wrong thing. So don't judge me too harshly. I'm definitely still learning, but I just wanted to share that with anybody that is interested or thinking about taking up beekeeping. All right, thanks.